The end of seeking. Welcome back to the Soul Potential CEO podcast. This is season 2, Living as Magic. Today's episode is about something subtle but massive, the energy of seeking. For most of us, the spiritual path begins with a question: who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And these are holy questions, but at some point they become a trap. Because seeking is an energy, and when it becomes your identity, it keeps your magic at arm's length. Let's break this down technically. Seeking creates energetic displacement. It says, the answer is over there. The next thing I learn will fix it. When I figure this out, then I'll be ready. But living as magic means ending that loop. Because here's the truth: as long as you're seeking, you are not transmitting. You're orbiting around your power instead of anchoring it. Now let's take a look at the energy of questioning. Questioning oneself can be clarifying. It's how we initiate inquiry, how we open to possibility. But when it's not grounded in presence, it creates fragmentation. There's a difference between receptive wonder and frantic doubt. Receptive wonder sounds like, I'm curious about what's next. I'm listening. I'm open. Frantic doubt sounds like, why isn't this working? Should I pivot? Do I need to change again? One creates space and the other creates noise. And that noise, it clouds your field. It distorts your magnetism. It interrupts your magic. Diving into the way that the mind responds to this mechanism, you end up with fragmentation and futility. Cognitive overload happens when we're constantly chasing answers, flooding the mind with stimulus, books, mentors, podcasts, strategies, leading to more confusion and contradictory inputs. The nervous system can't distinguish signal from the noise. Decision fatigue happens when the more options we seek, the more split our thinking becomes. We end up unsure of our own choices, and so we delay or outsource them. Chronic pattern analysis happens when the mind loops on the past, trying to solve identity through logic. It treats your becoming like a problem to fix instead of a truth to live. We can end up dissociated from our inner knowing, beginning to believe that someone else has our answer, eroding confidence in our intuitive intelligence. The way the body responds to this mechanism creates dysregulation and delay. Energetic leakage happens because when we're seeking, our energy moves outward. The body can't ground or integrate new frequencies because it's constantly reaching rather than receiving. We never get to stabilize. We skip the present moment. We override physical impulses like rest, play, or pleasure in favor of more information. Our spirit can experience a sense of separation, a delay of embodiment. Seeking assumes that we're incomplete, so our spirit is placed on layaway. Instead of living as source, we're chasing someone else's version of the divine. We loop in identity displacement, shaping our spiritual expression around what others have done, rather than what's organically blooming inside of us. Sometimes we seek performance over presence, because seeking often becomes a ritual of worthiness. If I learn more, I'll be enough. If I do it right, I'll be chosen. But magic doesn't require performance. It requires coherence. And I want to talk about how seeking is often the gateway to remembering who we are. As seeking begins, it awakens the system. Something inside of us stirs, a quiet knowing that there's more. Essentially, seeking opens a portal of possibility, catalyzing movement towards truth, beauty, freedom, or power. It's the soul whispering, there's a deeper rhythm to live by. Go and find it. Seeking often breaks programming. Before we know how to live as magic, we're often trapped in inherited roles and identities. Seeking interrupts those autopilot scripts. It helps us to refine discernment because in the beginning, seekers try everything: modalities, mentors, mantras, medicines. But over time, the contrast reveals the code. You learn to feel what resonates. You get sharper at recognizing fluff over frequency. Seeking builds and crafts your inner compass if you're listening for truth, not just novelty. Seeking also teaches devotion. An earnest seeker is deeply devoted to growth, love, and evolution, even if they haven't learned how to direct that energy yet. We're trying, we're open, we care. And that humility is the raw material of transformation. And so you may be moving into a phase in your life where you're ready to move from seeker into the expansive version of yourself. And I want to close this conversation with something incredibly important because seekers look for information, but content doesn't calibrate you. Frequency does. You can read 100 books, take every course, binge every podcast, but until you're in a room with someone who holds the frequency you're becoming, that shift stays mental. In my experience, it has been incredibly important for me to continue to have guidance, communities, colleagues, and rooms that I can be in that help me to expand. The end of seeking does not mean isolation, because we need to remember that even when you arrive to the place where it is time to learn from yourself, and I have personally experienced this, isolation actually creates distortion, whereas proximity creates precision. So cutting off consumption is wise. It helps us to detox from other people's codes and feel our own. But creation in a vacuum often leads to echo chambers. We can't feel our resonance reflected back. We end up questioning our power. Our ideas spiral instead of land. And in my reality, mentorship has been the bridge between sovereignty and refinement. It gives me access to clean mirrors. What I have learned is that training delivers knowledge, but mentorship transmits signal. And signal is what stabilizes our next level. When you're in energetic orbit with someone who is what you're calling in, your system entrains. That's biological, quantum, cellular. As long as you make sure that you're not copying others, what happens is that we remember that we're made of it too. This is what breaks the undertow of stagnation and self-doubt. So how do we hold both? We hold it in balance through sovereignty and signal. The formula looks like, I do not need to take another course so I can be ready, but I am ready, and now I need refined mirrors to sharpen the edges of what's already moving through me. This is the sweet spot where we understand that we require inspiration, but we create from our source. We're not here doing it alone, and we're also not drowning in noise. Because the truth is that you're not meant to learn your way to genius. You're meant to live your way into it. And proximity to embodied mentors, creative peers, and field-strong containers accelerate that process exponentially. This is why being in the room with the right frequency can collapse a 6-month identity loop in one conversation.